but we're not big budgeters, but we are big net worth trackers, or at least I am. I can fit net worth. I check it once a month because again, I just like to see where we're going. It's been a big thing for me. The net worth thing has been huge for me because there's been, back when we first started this journey, I didn't have a net worth template, if you will. And I would always wonder, like, are we moving up? Are we moving down? I don't really know. I feel like I'm just kind of treading water. But then when the net worth template came around, now I can say, okay, we went up, we went down. I can see where we're going well, not well, stuff like that.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 245. This week we've got a wonderful episode. We have Alan. He's in his mid-40s. He's a therapist working in administration now, and his wife is a nurse. His net worth hovering around $1 million, depending on the market fluctuations. Mostly between real estate with a couple of rentals and personal residence, and then some stocks and equities. One really unique thing we discussed with him is doing a Roth conversion ladder. In fact, he already has kind of started this, even though well away from years of retirement. So real interesting topic. We get into discussion with him and doing that, paying the tax now versus later, and his kind of mindset around that. We also talk about, his desire to get to a different level of net worth and how he thinks about that. Really, really good episode with Alan. So super excited for that this week. Last week we had Adam. He worked in health insurance, been with the same employer since he graduated college. He's up in his upper 40s and net worth was around $7 million. So if you're interested, go check out that episode. Without any further delay, let's get into the episode with Alan.
Alan, you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
Sure. So me and my wife, we were married in 2002, and I call the 2000s like our wandering years. We were going through college. She finished up her bachelor's degree. I went to the master's degree. After that, we did humanitarian work over in Africa for a bit. I got licensed as a therapist, and then we made our way back to the U.S. around 2010. Born and raised here in Florida. We were over in Orlando, moved to then and been here for the last 10 years. Working, my wife is a registered nurse for the local hospital, and I was doing direct care and therapy, and over the last year, I've recently moved into upper administration as a therapist.
Awesome. And what is your net worth today?
So it's roughly around, it's probably actually a little under $1 million. Last month, it was a little over $1 million. So we're teetering right around that $1 million market. The market would get its act together. I'd be back over $1 million.
Nice. And how is that broken up and divided amongst, the different buckets that you can allocate it to? Yeah.
So we have our primary, we have about $120,000 in equity. It's worth about $410. And our rentals, we have about $130 in equity, but they're worth about $200. And then we have about $30 in a little vacation property, nothing special. Odds and ends about $45. And then in our 401k, we have about $415. Then we have a brokerage account that's about $250, and that's broken. The brokerage account 401ks are broken into an S&P index, FOCPX. Again, we're all with Fidelity because we can bank with Fidelity as well as invest with Fidelity. And so then we have FOCPX, which it's a little more aggressive than, it's still kind of an index, but it's a little more aggressive than the S&P. And then then we're also invested in the QQQ, which is really just a tech stock, and then again a little more aggressive. And I guess the reason I go aggressive instead of have more of bonds, and again, everyone's different, right? It's personal finance because it's personal, is because I don't really have a stopping point to retire. I guess if someday that happens, that happens, but longevity continues to occur. And I'm 45, my wife is 40, and if the statistics right now say that if you reach 60, you have a 50-50 shot of making it to 90. So I just kind of think that bonds might not get me there. So, and I'm okay with the risk, of doing that. And I believe in us as a couple that our jobs are going to be there, so I'm okay being a little more aggressive and just being completely in stocks, or index funds, if you will, and then rentals.
Okay. And if you're looking at your allocation in those that are in the market, how much of that is basically tax protected in your retirement accounts? Or tax advantaged, I should say.
Yeah, so I don't have it completely broken out, but in the 401ks, it's roughly 415,000. I would say probably half of that is in Roth, and half of that is in a 401k.
And that's a traditional 401k?
Yeah, actually, it's probably 2/3 to 1/3. It's probably 2/3 in the 401k and 1/3 in Roth. Yeah.
And the Roth you did outside of your 401k, or do you have a Roth option at your employer's?
No, that's completely outside. And then as the market drops at about 20%, I kind of figured out what I needed to do, and then rolled over some of the IRAs into the Roth to get that 20% kind of gain did come back.
Interesting. So you essentially paid the taxes on rolling some of that over, correct?
I did, yep.
Why did you choose to do that? It's something that's, a lot of people, whether they're making that Roth conversion ladder later in life, it's usually something we see when people aren't, in your situation and potentially your peak earning years. So walk us through why you did that and maybe kind of explain to our listeners, the mechanics of that.
Sure. So the market dropped by 30%. And then a buddy of mine is a CFP, and he posted something on social media about, hey, now's a great time. And I was like, it was just a no-brainer for me. I guess it's for me like 1031 exchanges in real estate. We can get into my real estate or our real estate portfolio. It's just, I don't mind paying the taxes on it because I got to pay it at some point. And then it's just too much mental gymnastics for me to figure out the right time to do it, whether it's at 45 or 55 or 70s, to completely optimize everything. It's just a little too many mental gymnastics for me. So the market dropped by 30%. When it was still 20% down, I transferred over. And again, I didn't really even think about like a figure. It was just kind of like, I think I transferred over $18,000. I don't even know how I came up with that number. It was just a number that I transferred over and I said, cool, I'm good. And it was really like, okay, I think that's what I did. I think I figured out, okay, based on our tax rate, blah, 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 I'm going to have to pay a couple $1,000. I think we'll have that, in cash reserves at the end of the day. And I think that's how I figured it out. And I was comfortable with that. So I just transferred it over. I'm okay paying the tax now. Probably, I've listened to a lot of podcasts on when would not be a good time to do that. So I think if maybe I was 60, I don't think I would have done that. But at 45, I think I have plenty of time to make that, to make up those taxes that I paid on that $18,000.
Did you pay that tax with cash out of your savings or checking, or did you use some of the funds you rolled over to it?
No, cash. Yeah, we're actually about to pay our tax bill for the year. Yeah, we just paid it actually this week, right? So yeah, just cash out of our cash account.
So then when did the real estate start, Alan?
So it's really interesting. So we started out with Dave Ramsey, right? Listen to Dave Ramsey. And I remember listening to Dave Ramsey for a long time. And somewhere along the way, and I can't remember what it was that actually got me hooked on it. But then I started listening. We're reading, Mr. Money Mustache and Paula Pan and Choose FI. And then that kind of started and going down that rabbit trail and seeing what that's all about, and really liked it. And then I think just in that process, right, you have a lot of people in the FIRE movement that are into real estate. And so then I kind of got hooked on Bigger Pockets, and Bigger Pockets was something for me it's been somewhat of a journey for me trying to figure that out, and then at some point, I think I just jumped. It was, like, I'm not going to learn any more listening to hour-long podcasts, and I just have to jump. I say I, but it's really me and my wife. So we just jumped. And I think we're about a year and a half into real estate right now, own a duplex and 2 condos, and I'm ready to buy another one. And honestly, the real estate piece I'm wanting to change that up in our strategy. We were going for cash flow, and I think cash flow is fine. And again, I'm not here to judge. If you want cash flow, it's great. But I was listening to someone, I actually went back and listened to some Bigger Pockets podcasts, and someone talking about real estate and cash flow is a nice way to get started, get your feet wet, but appreciation really builds wealth. And that's what I'm looking for right now is appreciation. I was looking at my duplex appreciated the other day at $10,000, and I did absolutely nothing for that duplex to appreciate $10,000. Just I saw like, it went up from, the original amount to $10,000 more. And I was like, oh, that's nice, and so what if we had, instead of, I think our duplex is worth about $150 right now. So, but what if we had a $300,000 property and it went up 10%? And those numbers right now are very realistic for what's happening. And really in the Florida real estate market right now, it's going up like crazy here in Florida.
Yeah. So were you opposed to real estate earlier? Did you ever think you weren't going to be in real estate, or did you, I mean, I'm just asking because we received a message maybe last week where somebody said, "Hey, I just want to thank, the millionaires that have come on and shared about their journey getting started into real estate because I never knew that I could really do that and get to where I did. And now I own a few rental properties." And it's very similar to your story where I feel like he got into real estate in his 40s, late 30s, 40s, and, started buying a couple rentals, and then it started going really well for him. So I just kind of want to dig into your story here because I think you're a perfect one to talk about of somebody that had a lot of money in the markets or most of their money in the markets, the majority of their money. And then they said, "Hey, I'm going to start dabbling in real estate too."
Yeah. I think it's a case of what you don't know. I didn't know even real estate was an option until I started listening to Bigger Pockets and then just started diving in and getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And then just realizing like, oh, we can do real estate. It's just systems. We just have to set up systems, and that's not that hard if you just kind of sit down and do it one day. And that's what we did. We just set up systems. And again, growing up here in Florida, my wife's from Pennsylvania, but growing up here in Florida, I know the markets pretty well. I know the little towns that do really well and the little towns that don't do really well. And so we've invested in a little town that's mostly retirees. Well, retirees have a fixed income coming in. And so there's really a cap on what they can and can't pay. And so we just invested not in a 55 and over community, but just in a retirement community that pays $700, $800, $900 a month, and they pay. They set their little plants out on the door, and they pay every month. It's not an issue at all. So I think it was just more of just like, oh, okay, we can do that. And I think it was just listening to about 2 years. It takes a while to get into my head, but about 2 years of Bigger Pockets. They're like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah, and I want to get into how you started financially and how much debt, but let's just keep rolling with this real estate here because now we've started down this track. So how did this first deal, the very first thing, what in real estate, how did it come to be? Where did you find it? Tell us about that first deal you did.
So it's so funny. I listen to Bigger Pockets. I still listen to Bigger Pockets. I find it really motivating. But Bigger Pockets, as you might see a theme running here, I'm not big on like making it complicated. Like I'm big on the keep it simple, stupid process. I found it on the MLS, and I did the quick math, the back of the napkin math, and I think the property it was listed for 130. I found it. I went and talked to the guy, and I think we could talk him down to 123 with concessions and stuff like that. I think we paid 123 for it, and that was that. That was the deal. It was it was good. There were some things that needed to be fixed up. I think the owner, previous owner, just wanted out. I think he had a few properties. The property wasn't it wasn't great. It was more of a flooring paint job kind of property. So we just went in there. And I think the day of, we inherited 2 tenants. One is still there. One is not still there. The one who is not still there was an interesting, he was fun to deal with, right? You got to lower your expectations a little bit. He was fun to deal with. I think along the process, what we realized is that I don't really want to take my time up being a landlord. So we were landlords for a while, had all the stuff coming into us, and then, shifted that over to a property manager. I'm not really sure that if we ever became landlords of, let's say, a $300,000 property as opposed to a $150,000 duplex, would it be any different? Not really sure. We're going to find that out here shortly, I hope, as we kind of save up a little more for a down payment. But that was it. And then,
so that was a duplex, that first one.
That was a duplex.
And off the MLS, you're talking like Zillow?
Yeah, Realtor.com.
Realtor.com, yeah, okay.
And really, even since that point, there's been probably 5 other duplexes in that similar area. And we're not talking about like in the really lower socioeconomic neighborhoods. We're talking about C+ kind of property. It's not bad. There's other properties around it that pop up every now and then. And then since that point, there's probably been about 5 properties that if I'd have had the money, I would probably have popped down 25% and rolled on those too. Just didn't have the money at the time.
So you said it came with 2 renters. I assume that means one per each side, right?
Yeah.
Did you worry that if they were to move out, I don't know where it is, but did you worry that you couldn't find quality, good renters? Was that a concern at all?
Not a concern a bit. And where it's located, in Florida, again, it's a retiree community. Workforce housing down there is a big need. So even if it did get a retiree, I'm sure I could find some workforce housing people. And then, so the one gentleman that moved out, we actually found workforce housing. So A Latino couple moved in, and they've been fantastic since then. It's actually the one renter that's still there that she's super special. So probably sometime here this year, I think her lease runs out sometime this year, and I'll probably do some real estate gymnastics to get her out. She's been a difficult tenant. She pays every month, but she makes you know that she pays every month. So it's just, it's like I paid and I need my screen repaired. I paid and the faucet's leaking. I paid, so I'm like, okay, I get it. So we're probably going to do something about that this year to get her out.
You buy that for, I believe you said 123, right?
Yep.
So, okay, so you're 130-ish all in after closing costs and everything?
Yeah, some of that, yep.
Okay, and how much did you put down and how much did it rent for, or how much do you cash flow now?
Sure, yeah. So we put down 25%. I think we ended up with about a $91,000 mortgage on that property, and at the time, one renter was paying $700. That was the renter that's moved out. The other renter was paying $550. She was paying $550 because the old landlord didn't want to upgrade the property at all. So he just kept the rent super low. And now, we have since, again, the gentleman's moved out. That rent's gone up to $775. Her rent went from $550 the day of we bought it, and I pushed it up to $700. But those rents in that duplex can get to $900. So over this next year, they will get pushed up to $850, $900. I'm not a big proponent of trying to get the most I can get out of a property. I'd rather get a little bit less and just have the tenants be really thankful that they're paying a little bit less and keep them in, as opposed to trying to get the most out of the property.
So roughly, what do these cash flow to you?
Yeah. So our monthly nut on that duplex is $750. And, we're getting $1,500 right now a month out of that. I mean, that's gross,
what do you net down? Is it $100, $200 a door basically, or is it a little bit more than that?
It's $300 to $400 a door. And when we up it a little bit more, it'll be almost $400 a door.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple grand coming in roughly net when it's all said and done. And then
we have two,
per unit.
Yeah, we have two condos. Yeah. The two condos are really super simple. They're not great. They're not like big money makers, but they're super simple. We probably get $5,000 a year net off the condos. Yeah, but it's just they're easy maintenance, super simple.
And you don't outsource any of the management for those?
Sure. Yeah, all of it's outsourced now.
Oh, all of it, and you still cash flow $300 to $400.
Yeah, and our property manager, she does something interesting where she basically takes 8% across the board. So whether it's the first and last, she'll take 8% of that. 8% of the rent. She just takes 8% across the board, 8% of everything. She doesn't take. I know some property managers will take the first and the security deposit or first and last or something like that. They'll just take it as their kind of fee for finding the tenant. Ours just takes 8% of everything, and I kind of like that, honestly, because it doesn't incentivize the property manager to turn over the property every time. It's just 8%. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, Alan, where do you go from here? You've got this little rental portfolio. You've got $1 million net worth. You've got a long runway in a lot of ways in front of you. Do you have target net worth, target where you're heading 5-10 years down the road, or is it just keep plugging away and kind of getting rid of some of these paradigms you had in the past? I know you shared with us a little bit that you never thought you'd own properties, and here you are with 5 of them.
Yeah, I was sharing on the Choose FI Facebook forum about my goal, which is right now 12 million. And people were like 12 million, right? It's such an arbitrary number. Why 12 million? And I think it's because I kept on telling myself like that 1 million wasn't possible. And I was like, okay, I got 1 million down. Let's go to 2. And and then listening to Millionaires Unveiled and other books and podcasts it's going to speed up. It took us 10 years to get to 1 million. And coming into 2010, I thought about it. We only had $30,000 invested come 2010. So it's the bulk of this million has come over the 10 years. We've been lucky with a little bit of the real estate. We bought back in 2011 a short sale, so we've been a little lucky in real estate. But 1 million will turn into 2 quicker than 1, and then so I'm like, okay, well, 2's too short side. Let's go to 5, and I'm like, well, okay, let's not do 5. Let's just do 12. And it's just, I just think I keep setting our sights a little too close. And I'm like, let's go dream big and put it out at 12. And if we ever reach 12, that's great. And if we don't, that's fine too. If we reach 100 million, okay, that's fine too. For me right now, it's just more about that process of learning more about me and us as a couple and trying to figure out, where do we go from here? I don't know. I tell my wife all the time that, my wife grew up pretty poor. I grew up probably middle class, and we did humanitarian work abroad in Africa. So for us, living on $30,000 a year, which is not, we live on about 60 a year right now, but living on 30 a year, that's okay. So I don't need 12, but if we can get to 12, that's cool. So it's really just a process. So it's a journey right now to figure out, how far can we make ourselves grow.
Do you plan on potentially, if you reach that number, would you retire early?
Quote unquote? I was reading this. No, actually, no. The job I have right now in administration is the most fun I've had in a job in a long, long time. It's tiring some days and I'm stretched some days, but I'm having the most fun right now. And I look at these guys in my field, older you get, the more money you make, as opposed to I know some people in sales where they make the most money like in their 30s and 40s. In my field, kind of come into your own in your 50s. And I say that to say that I'm good working. I'm reading a book. Me and my wife are reading it together, actually, called The Wealthy Gardener. And that book has been really, it's a parable kind of book. And it's really been life-changing to me because the guy in the book talks about thinking about your work as a friend, right? It really talks about work and exercise as your friend. And I think a lot of times, especially for guys, we call it a day at 59 or 62 or 65 or whatever. And then boom, we're retired. We're in the RV traveling all the time. And that sounds really fun. I love to travel. I'm kind of bummed I haven't been able to do that. I really would like to get back to Costa Rica, but I don't know what I would really do with myself if I had 3 months off or 6 months off for a year. I think I'd get bored pretty quickly. I'd have to go find myself something to do. So I don't know how long I'll be working kind of in corporate America, but I do have this number in my head at 60. I'll at least have a choice at that point. It's going to be in my head like, okay, Alan, there's a choice now. At 60, you can keep doing what you want to do, or you can just, go find something else to do. And I don't know what I'll do about that. There are some things in the mental health world that I'd really like to explore, that I've really become kind of jazzed about lately, that I'd really like to go kind of dabble in a little bit and figure it out. But so 60 is the number, but again, I don't see myself retiring at 60. I'd really like to continue to build the rental portfolio, if that's a thing. I've had a mind to do entrepreneur and get into some kind of business. Again, I don't know what that is, but it's just a process of trying to stretch myself or us, trying to stretch us.
All right, let's take a quick break from the show and thank Gusto for sponsoring today's episode. A lot of people dream of having their own business, but by having their own business, that also means running their own business. If you're living your entrepreneurial dream but struggling with the tedious administrative tasks, whether it be HR, payroll, employee benefits, or anything else, let Gusto help. Gusto offers all-in-one payroll and HR for growing businesses. From full-service payroll and benefits to team management tools and more, Gusto makes it easy to support your hardworking team in one intuitive platform. Whether your team is in person, remote, or a combination of both, with Gusto, keeping your team on track is easy. So join the more than 200,000 new and growing businesses that are using Gusto to build a great workplace for their employees. Right now, Gusto is offering our listeners 3 months free at gusto.com/unveiled. That's Gusto, Gusto. Get easy payroll, benefits, HR, and a happier team. So go to gusto.com/unveiled for your first 3 months free. Again, that's gusto.com/unveiled. So thanks to Gusto for sponsoring today's show.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing and thanks for being so honest with it. So Wealthy Gardener John, he was on episode 145. Do you know that?
Oh, right. Oh, no, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So we've had him on episode 145. So I'm just going to piggyback here off Jace's question about where you go from here and the goal and 12 million. So you cash flow, if you're saying $400 a door, you got 4 rental properties, right? Mm-hmm. And then your personal residence, the duplex, and then 2, are they single family?
the duplex, and then the condos, yeah, and then us, yeah.
Okay, so $1,600 a month, which is roughly $20,000 a year.
Yep.
So, and you say you could live on 30 right now. You live on 60 a year. So, do you say, okay, I'm going to start withdrawing on some of these market investments, or is the goal to add to these rentals and get a little closer to the 60?
It's closer to the 60. I listened to the Choose That Fi podcast, and they have all these lean fi, fat fi, this fi, that fi. I kind of look at it as like I got Costa Rica fi right now. So I got Costa Rica fi. Like if I wanted to sell it all, and I could just sell, well, minus the 401ks, right? But other than that, I could just sell it all, move to Costa Rica, and live on $2,000-$3,000 a year because I'm not selling the 401ks, But so that would put us at like on the 4% rule. That put us at $2,000 to $3,000. In addition, then the rentals, right? So that would bump that up a little bit. So 35.4. So I call it Costa Rica fi. I got Costa Rica fi, or I got a sailboat fi. or I got like sailboat fi right now, right?
How leveraged are these?
What's the rentals?
Yeah.
So two of both the condos are paid off, but that sounds really inflated. The condos are you guys are gonna laugh. The condos are I paid $25,000 for one condo and 30 for the other. And it's really tough to kind of dial it in like per month net on those. It's really just better to look at it per year. So probably, again, we net probably $6,000 a year on both of those. Again, it's small money. We didn't risk a lot, so we didn't get a lot. Those are paid off. We just paid cash for those, but that's probably it. But I don't really see myself quitting anytime soon. It's really, I listen to people who have kind of quote unquote fat fi, and I'd rather get to that number and live retirement well than to try and frugalize it or, do the points things on the credit card. And I love the points things on the credit card, but try to do all these kind of little gymnastics to figure out the most optimal way to do life.
Yeah. Let's go back. I mentioned we're going to go back to your story here at the beginning. And you mentioned to Jace that your wife grew up poor. You grew up middle class, right? I believe. Do I have that right?
Yep.
How did that affect you, and how did that affect your mindset growing up? And then as you got older and started saving money, did you have to kind of switch some of your thinking, or what effect did that have on you?
It's so interesting you say that, because I have some notes written down there as I was going over the questions today. And I have two big money influences in my life. And the first is my grandpa. My grandpa grew up in the World War II generation. He was born in the 1920s. He was a Great Depression guy. And my grandpa probably never made more than $40,000 in his life. Worked on the railroad for 33 years, and he almost died a millionaire. And but late in his life, you guys might find this funny. Late in his life, he recently died last year. He was 97. Great life. And
sorry to hear.
No, don't be sorry. He lived in 97. Lived a great life. If I can live half the life that he lived, I'm good. And late in his life, about a year before he died, he went in the hospital. He'd never been in the hospital before. He went in the hospital. And so my uncle went through some of his belongings just to make sure when home health came in that nothing disappeared. And he opened one of his drawers, and there were shoelaces in there, like a drawer full of shoelaces. And that was my grandpa to a T. He nickel and dime anything he could nickel and dime. I mean, he would patch things. I mean, his shirts looked like they were about to like fall apart, held together by one thread. And he was always about saving and thrifty. He probably never had, in his retirement years, him and my grandma probably never more than $24,000 coming in a year. And he probably saved half of that. He was just super frugal with his money. And so juxtaposed to my dad, who didn't do great. I mean, he made 50 to 100 a year, give or take, any given year. But my dad could never let a dollar sit lonely in his pocket. It was always gone. He always needed the latest gadget, the latest this. And I look at my dad as someone who could have been, right? He could have been so much more financially, but he grew up super poor. And it was just gone. Everything was just gone. As soon as it got it in, it was gone. And whereas my grandpa didn't really have much, and he amassed almost $1 million before he died. So I try to like juxtapose those as I go through my life. And there's so much that I can learn from both people.
Has it been hard? Yeah, thanks for sharing. Has it been hard to flip a switch on spending? As you think about that and maybe the way you've lived before you became a millionaire, do you feel like you're spending more than you have before?
No. I told my wife that I email out because I'm again, maybe I'm like other millionaires, maybe I'm not, but we really don't do a budget so much. We used to be big budgeters. Occasionally we'll revisit it when I feel like our spending is going a little sideways, like just to figure out where it's going. But we're not big budgeters, but we are big network trackers, or at least I am. I can fit network. I check it once a month just because, again, I just like to see where we're going. It's been a big thing for me. The network thing has been huge for me because there's been, back when we first started this journey, I didn't have a network template, if you will. And I would always wonder, like, are we moving up? Are we moving down? I don't really know. I feel like I'm just kind of treading water. But then when the network budget or network kind of template came around, now I can say, okay, we went up, we went down. I can see where we're going well, not well, stuff like that.
How do you track that? How do you track that, Alan?
Just on an Excel spreadsheet, old school Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it dates all the way back to 2016, maybe even 15. The way I track it. So it's just every month, and then I'll pull it either directly off Fidelity. Sometimes I'll play around Personal Capital. I'm not super happy with Personal Capital. It's good until it doesn't work, and then I feel like I spend 30 minutes trying to get it to work. I could have just gone on Fidelity and just got the number put in.
But how often do you update it? Monthly, quarterly?
Monthly. Yep. Okay. Monthly. Yep. But I don't feel like we spend.
How many years? Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No. Go ahead. No, you're fine.
How many years back do you have it?
2016. Sometimes I get really ambitious and try to think like, we need to track paychecks in there. That'd be interesting to track because I'm a big data geek guy in my job. I love data, but then I was like, that would take a lot of time to figure out those paychecks. Okay, I don't have that much time. So then I just go back to what I can figure out really quickly. But no, we don't really spend much more than we normally spend now that we've hit a millionaire. It's just, it's almost ingrained in us, and I really would like to think that it's ingrained in us from a long time ago rather than just since 2010 since we've gone on this trek.
So let me ask you, Alan, about mental health, because you worked in mental health and how does that and personal finance and money connect?
It's huge.
Do you find that people, and I'm just totally thinking out loud here, do you find that people who are more financially stable have better mental health? Is there a correlation at all?
I think there's definitely a correlation. I have a few friends who, again, let's set finance aside, who are into physical health, like they want to be, right? They want to be into physical health, and they do it for a couple weeks, and then they're off the bandwagon. And then they do it for a couple weeks, and then they're off the wagon. And they keep on doing this thing back and forth. And I feel like that's what some people do with personal finance. And again, I'm not here to judge, right? You do you. But I feel like sometimes people that struggle with mental health, they have a difficult time because whether it's anxiety or depression or bipolar, or God forbid, like schizophrenia, stuff like that, it's really difficult, right? To kind of get your brain around what it takes to do this day to day. Yeah, I think they're completely connected.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm just curious. I don't think that's something we've talked about before on the show. Yeah. And then believing in yourself, I just want to hit on that. That's something we talked about briefly before recording. You mentioned that, you thought, hey, maybe I couldn't get there, or you had, I don't know if it's fair to say you had limiting beliefs, is it? But now you feel like you just kind of take it for the flow. You have a net worth goal of 12, but it's kind of like, hey, I can get there wherever, why do I have to stop at 1 or 2? Just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
No, again, my wife and I are kind of just generally frugal. I mean, we're not like the frugal woods, right? Where, again, nothing against the frugal. We're not out there, retirement extreme, washing our clothes by hand with soap, but we're just kind of naturally frugal. We might, Burger King's having a 2 for $5 or something. Like, we might run down there and grab that or something like that. But, just kind of going back to that lowest common denominator. And I don't know why I never saw it. It's like, we both have very good degrees and we're both kind of really good at what we do. So why is it not possible to go further? And that, again, no, you're absolutely correct. It's that limiting mindset. Like, just open up and be willing to take a chance, be willing to fail. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I mean, recently we haven't talked about it, but I invested in a little bit of crypto, like $6,000. I put $6,000 in crypto. Part of it was just I guess the big part for me was like just trying to figure out cryptos and blockchain technology, right? Is it going to be something, or is it just all hype? And I'm sure like a bunch of people are still trying to figure it out. But I'm like, I got $6,000 in there. If it goes to zero tomorrow, is my net worth really taking a hit? no, not really. It's okay. I took a chance. I tried to figure out blockchain technology. It went to zero. It's okay. It's not hurt. So it's just kind of testing those limits and being willing to experiment. And that's something I'm a big like experimenter, and just being willing to experiment with things and figuring out did they work or did they not work? Okay, they work. Cool. I'll do more of that. If they didn't work, okay, maybe I'll evaluate and figure out did I do something wrong, and if I didn't do anything wrong, then I'll just move on and figure out okay that didn't work, and then we just move on.
Yeah.
I do that in my job all the time with relationships in my job. I'll try something out with somebody and be like, again, it's low risk. It's not like super high risk, like I'm putting I'm endangering somebody or something like that. Let me try this with the staff and let's see if that works. And if that didn't work, okay, then I move on and I try something else with that staff member until I get it right.
Did you worry 10, 20 years ago about money? Hey, I'm not going to have enough. Hey, I'm going to have to work too long. Hey, I should be saving super aggressively or living super frugally.
My grandpa would always try and like when we were going to college, he had no idea about college. And he was always a big guy about pencil pushers. That's what he called it, pencil pushers. And, I think he might roll over his grave right now knowing that I'm a pencil pusher right now. But that was his big thing, pencil pushers. But he would always give us like $50. And I would always chuckle because $50 was never enough to get us through college. I think I came out with about $25,000 in debt in college between my undergrad and grad, and my wife came out with about $5,000. But I don't know that I ever even thought that far in advance, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to work till I'm 85. It just never was a thought to me. It was just like, okay, it was just paycheck to paycheck, and then once I don't know that I ever really thought about it, like, like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have to work until I'm 100. It just never was anything. It was just like, okay, we'll just work.
Well, good stuff. Let's wrap up some rapid fire questions, and then we'll get into a little bit final advice. So, what's the most expensive pair of shoes you've ever purchased?
$100, and I buy Cole Haan, and the reason I buy Cole Haan shoes is that there's been studies done. This is just maybe it's just us millionaires. There's been studies done that say Cole Haan shoes last bang for buck. They last the longest. So I go buy Cole Haan shoes, and they last me about 5 years. They're dress shoes for work, and they last me about 5 years. And then you can actually send them back into Cole Haan, and they'll actually completely refurbish them for like $100 to send them back to you if you want them back, which I've done before as well. So yeah, about $100.
Nice. I think Alan Edmonds is like that too. What's the most expensive pair of pants you've ever purchased?
Yeah, probably $50.
Okay. What about a most expensive car?
Back in 2012, we spent $16,000 on my wife's Subaru Outback. And again, Subaru Outback because I can get probably 300,000 miles out of it.
Okay. What about most expensive meal out?
Probably about $500, and that was probably for like me and my wife and maybe another couple.
Okay. How much time do you spend watching TV a week?
It's funny. It varies, but I don't know. It depends. Like when football's on, again, growing up here in the South, football's big. So, college football, pro football, when it's on, probably a bit more. But when it's not happening, I don't know, probably more than that, probably 8 to 10 hours a week.
Do you have a favorite show you watch?
I've actually gone down the YouTube trail right now. I'm like, it's crazy. Yeah, but no, not really. I just kind of bounce around for here or there. And, TV for me is just a way to decompress. It's nothing. I'm not looking for something riveting, to really get me engaged. It's really just for me. Before I go to bed, just watch something that's kind of mindless, and then I can just go to sleep.
How many books a year do you read?
That's fun. I was reading more books, but I'm a podcast junkie. If you look at my podcast feed on Overcast, it's podcast. It's Bigger Pockets, Choose That Buy. You guys ever here at Millionaires Unveiled? I listen to stuff about the Appalachian Trail. Love to hike the Appalachian Trail one day. This American Life. I listen to stuff. Podcasts are my books. I listen every time I jump in my truck. I'm listening to podcasts and learning something. That's where I learn. It's really driving. So over the last year, when I've not been driving as much, it's been kind of a downer for me. Not listening to podcasts as much. Okay.
And any favorite podcasts or books out there that you would recommend?
The book that I'd recommend right now, I feel like I can just listen to it once a year, is The Wealthy Gardener. The stuff that's coming out of that kind of parable story format, it just resonates with me so much right now. I've recommended it to everybody I can talk to, and I'm only in probably a third of the way through the book because I really want to listen to it with my wife. But yeah, The Wealthy Gardener right now.
Are there any special items, tangible vacations or anything out there that you want to do one day as you continue to build wealth? There's some bucket list items that you haven't done yet?
I think I would like to go and hike Mount Kilimanjaro one day. We used to live in Africa a bit, and I've been to Kenya a few times during the city in Nairobi. But I would like to get back to and do Mount Kilimanjaro. But that's about it.
No items that you want, cars or sports cars or anything like that, or a second home or anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it's so, so fleeting sometimes. You think to yourself like, oh, I want that. And then you get that, and then you're disappointed in that. One thing I do find interesting sometimes, people, when they, sometimes maybe when they're asked this question, that do you value things or experiences? And a lot of times people say, well, I value experiences, but a lot of times you need those things to experience those things, right? And I'm a boater. We don't have a boat this year. We sold our boat. We had a pontoon boat last year and sold it. It was just costing a little too much money that I wanted to spend. And so we sold it, but you kind of need a boat to experience things on the water. So, I'm really missing a boat right now. I'd really like to, talking about things, I'd really like to try and figure out like sailing, to see if I like sailing at all. So that's kind of one of my little pet projects right now, is trying to figure out if I like sailing.
Nice. So to wrap up here, what would your final piece of advice be to somebody who's just starting out or trying to get started on their journey?
I think the first thing is just get started. A lot of times people are, I need more information, right? I need more information. And, just get started. You're gonna fail. Promise you. It'll happen. That's okay. You'll figure it out. If you just believe in yourself, you'll get started, but just get started. I think that's the biggest thing. Believe in yourself and just get started.
That's awesome. Well, Alan, appreciate you coming on the show. Congrats on your success. It's once again Alan, the million dollar net worth, coming on here to do his $1 million holla. Thanks for coming on the show today.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.